What are you doing here? What a beautiful coincidence we're together here right now. Okay, here's the main gist. I think books are really cool. I've been a pretty consistent reader for about 4 years now. I know reading is something a lot of people talk about, like, God, I wish I did that more. That kind of stuff. Not so much like reading posts and things, but like reading books. They're really cool. I think they're freaking wicked. Like, I've got a whole bookshelf that's like directly behind you. I mean, you can't turn around, but I need you to trust me on that. Behind you, and like some over here. I don't even know if you can make that out. Oh God, I'm doing the sword jack face stuff. Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, anyways, books are wicked. I think they're great. I wanted to make this video as a little bit of a pitch. Maybe this gives you a good kick in the ass where you go, you know what? I want to do some more reading. Okay, so if you do watch my videos, if you're a subscriber, first of all, shout out to you. You're the real G. Then you may know that I usually like taking a subject and trying to dive into it a bit, exploring ideas and themes, and you may have noticed that every once in a while I will reference a book for a particular topic. Granted, I'm no like crazy research guy where I have like 5 scholarly studies and that sort of deal, but you know, the occasional like, yeah, sure, let's grab this book, let's put that over there, bada boom, bada bing, sort of deal, right? Okay, so with that though, reading itself is amazing. It is like completely insane. Like video games are still like numero uno. Really do enjoy me a video game. Movies are fantastic, but like books are insane because you have huge walls of text that are like these symbols that proceed to, if you learn how to interpret these things, you can create like a mental image in your mind. You can get ideas and things and no one is directly speaking to you. You are creating this yourself. Like that is completely wicked, man. Okay, yeah, so anyways, books are really cool. Point number 1, if you read books more, you're not going to doom scroll as much. Where I think in the state of the world right now, it's really easy to fester in a sort of outrage. I find myself doing it quite a bit. I think I'm good, and then like throughout the day, I will just get like really pissed off for like no particular reason after looking at a post or something. Like they call it rage baiting for a reason, but like with a lot of things, a lot of it is to kind of like hook you and grab your attention sort of deal. It's not so much giving you something that you're like, yes, I need this, but it's more getting your attention so it can sell you ads. But one of the really cool things about books is, at least that I know of, there aren't particular ads in books where a lot of them are about the experience itself. It's a person who sat down and really thought about an idea for like an extreme amount of time, so much, and it would not leave their head that they have physically or like electronically made something that is a collection of like an idea that is explored quite a bit. Maybe it's a particular topic, a study, or like a really engaging story sort of deal. And that's one of the best parts about books too, is that a lot of it is, the world is your oyster. There are so many topics in books, like literally anything you could think of, there's probably a book for it. So that itself is really cool. Now, one of the things about reading that I find myself thinking about a good chunk, and I think people, especially in the United States education system, have a particular sort of feeling where like reading kind of sucked, or at least in school it did, because it wasn't so much what are your takeaways from a book, what are the ideas you think are really interesting and engaging. It was about filling a quota, as in you're like having a writing prompt and then somebody asks you what color was the light in The Great Gatsby sort of deal, where it's like you're not so much learning or you're like gathering ideas, you're gathering information to kind of fill in the blanks to like pass the quiz or the test. So you're not able to think very well about a topic, or it leaves like a negative impression that you're like, why would I do this? This sucks ass sort of deal. But with books, the possibilities are endless with the idea of you can pick anything and like any one of the pages has the possibility of having an idea or an interesting concept that sparks a creative endeavor, or maybe gets you to approach something from a different angle. But one of the questions that I find myself thinking about recently is that there's this initial sentiment with the rise of AI and ChatGPT. I mean, I know ChatGPT has been around for a bit, but kind of the rise in popularity of it, where it's kind of used as this thing that when we're looking at it, we point at and there's like this initial fear about. Like, I totally get that. with it, there's this idea of like, okay, why would I sit and read a book if I can just go on ChatGPT and tell me a summary about it? Which, yeah, I mean, I get that. Like, if you only have so much time and you get this idea of like, okay, if I need to learn something, I want to minimize the amount of time I have to spend engaging with this thing if I can get the answer, the same exact answer, right then and there. I think with that, though, there are two particular ideas recently I've been thinking about. Is number one, you don't necessarily get to choose the things that you kind of connect with. One of the things with books, especially with longer books, or like with any kind of books, I guess, not so much longer ones, but it's more possible with a longer one, is that reading itself isn't necessarily like super stimulating. Mentally, it can be, but there can be slogs where you're like, oh God, this is so boring. Why am I doing this to myself? But there's something nice in that. Like, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy my YouTube videos. I make YouTube videos. I like when people watch them. But there is something a little, I would say a little sinister or a little shitty about the idea of using very like attention-grabbing stuff that isn't so much about the quality of what you're trying to say or using that as a vehicle to convey the ideas you're speaking about, but so much to garner attention to keep people kind of glued to what you're watching. Like, there's something really gross in that. And especially with social media, that's a lot of stuff. And reading is like the complete opposite. It's, you're dealing with an idea and you're sitting there and you're like have this one idea constantly and consistently. And there's something really cool in that because it gets your mind to wander. You get to think of interesting ideas. You can really sit with something and examine it from different angles. Like, you can get a great understanding, or at least a concept that maybe somebody else who's reading the exact same thing is like, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy, man. With that, there's also another part that, this is going to sound very like woo-woo, but I like, it's like kind of difficult to articulate, even so much in like an academic sense. Like, I'm not an academic kind of guy, but there's this particular idea that, okay, so there's this author named David Foster Wallace. He was this like dude who wrote these books, very descriptive, I know, but like the big one, if you've ever seen it, is this book called Infinite Jest. It is this like huge ass book, and like what it's known for is like a lot of the footnotes. And normally with authors and like kind of with celebrities in general, they do these kind of like interviews or press tour sort of deal. And he did this one that I believe took place in 2003. I will link it in this description. But there was this certain idea where he talked about, with especially kind of the world we're living in, that paraphrasing. I need to stress, this is not a direct quote, but kind of the general gist, I hope is pretty on point. But he said this thing that was along the lines of, there's, with a lot of the world where a lot of it is constantly like, all these things are going on constantly and consistently, there's a part of us that wants a sense of quiet, a sense of calm, where compared to all the hustle and bustle of kind of modern life, there's a part of our souls that want this sense of like peace. And it's not like, it's almost a hunger. Like I find myself feeling that too, where it's like I can be very focused in very like stimulus activities, but there's almost this kind of like vegetative like afterwards, where it's like it may have been nice in the moment, but afterwards you're just like, oh my God. But there is something that I think a part of us really itches for, that sense of quiet, that when the mind is still, or you're thinking about something and it's not so stimulating that it's completely like taking everything you have to focus on it, but you slowly start to kind of think more and more about that subject. And it's like, there's a piece to it. Like, I find myself, like, if I'm stressed about something, and if I read for like maybe 30 minutes, 15, or even an hour, it's like, I find myself feeling so much better after that. Like, the stress is reduced, you're working your mental muscles, if you will, and it's just this, it's a great feeling. And like, one of the coolest parts about books too is that it feels like you're not alone. Like if you're reading something in particular, and maybe it's like a really good book, maybe it's a novel, or I don't quite know if a study, but yeah, sure, why not? Let's throw that in there. But especially with fiction, there's this thing where it's like when you start reading and kind of thinking about these characters, or like the author is talking about something, it feels like you're having a conversation with another person. Like it's this exchange of information that's not so much a summary that's like surface level, hey, here's what it is, but it feels like there's like waves of interest and lows. There's this sense that you're really interacting with another person. Even if the person is like long dead or has passed away, you can hear this because there's always the thing about like an author has a really strong voice, maybe it's word choice or how they say things, but it makes them feel alive, if you will. And there's something like so cool in that. Like normally reading is pitched as like, it's really good for the sake of getting information and being smarter, which can be cool, don't get me wrong. Like, it's fun to kind of get nuggets and have ideas that smarter people than you say, and you're like, oh my god, that's brilliant, sort of deal. But sometimes it's the act itself that is really good. It's low stimulus, and it's not always fun, but there are those moments where it is, when you're reading, you're like, this is great. Like, this is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so I want to keep this relatively short. So I'm not quite sure if that necessarily sold you on it, but I wanted to offer some suggestions, if you will. So, like a bunch of wizards and like on top of some like stuffy tower with our fine robes and our sheets of parchment, I wanted to recommend some particular books that I found really moved me through the years that I really, really like and I want to share with you. If you're a reader, or actually, if you're a reader, I'd like to hear even your recommendations as well if you're willing to share. One of the best parts about it is like having the sense of checking out new things and having new ideas and new concepts. Okay, so here is my peace offering to you, if you will. That if you enjoyed this video, or at least kind of watching it, like, it's fine or whatever, that you at least have some recommendations. They may not be your cup of tea, but these are the ones that kind of worked for me, that I'm like, these are really cool. So like a high school presentation, I'm going to tell you about these books. Book number 1, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Habit, by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. That'll do it. But this book itself is about basically the study of kind of happiness. It's this idea of what exactly keeps us the most engaged and these sort of ideas. I will say these kind of like book review thing I'm doing right now. I haven't read a lot of these books in a couple of years, so I'm trying to go off the old mental bank here. Okay, but this particular book talked about basically the flow state, if you will. It's that experience where time goes really fast and you're fully engaged in the present moment and like what's going on right now. And it talks about a bunch of different avenues for this, how to measure it, if you will. This is a psychology book, by the way. Like, I mean, with that whole concept, you'd assume so. But this is pretty great book. Like, this is one of them where I would highlight, underline a bunch of things. And this is one of the books that gave me the impression, or like the one talked about, that when you're trying to learn things, it's not important so much to learn what other people are saying you should learn, but the most important thing, what you're interested in, because you're probably going to follow through on it. Like, I think the book mentions there was this one of, okay, so if you were interested in studying history, or like the idea of history, perhaps you are interested in the clothing aspect of history, and you focus on that, or like your knowledge, and like you focus your attention on that kind of stuff because it fascinates you. Like, that's kind of the idea, where it's not so much doing things because people tell you these are good and you should do them, but following your own personal interests, and that's like a great way to keep you mentally engaged. Okay, fantastic book. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Book number 2, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. I will admit, I haven't read any other Hunter S. Thompson yet, but this one, I've enjoyed this quite a bit. I think I've read this about like 4 times. You have these 2 characters. You have Raoul Duke, and you have, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Oh my god, I can't believe it. It's the attorney. He's the attorney. As your attorney, I advise you to do this. Okay, so basically, you have these two guys who are trying to cover this particular event in Las Vegas. And what the book basically becomes is these two people who are conning their way through this event and like doing an insane amount of drugs. It's awesome. It is wild. It's crazy. Hunter S. Thompson's writing style is like great. He does this thing where he's describing like this crazy nightmarish thing, and then it cuts to a very like, I never really knew about that. I proceed to like the tone is completely different. It is awesome. And there's like, if you heard about the book or even the movie with Johnny Depp in there, that there's this like certain part where there's kind of this like sense of lucidity. Like for all the chaos and all the crazy things, you're getting these moments of introspection, especially from itself, going from the generation of the 1960s to the 70s, because the book is also, the secondary goal of the characters is that they are trying to find the American dream sort of deal. And kind of that idea and grappling with the fact that they can't. It's gone. It's not there. Really cool. It's wild. It's zany. It is like, oh boy, it's crazy. Okay, so now I'm a little torn on this one. Okay, so I think one of the authors I've been trying to follow in particular more is Kurt Vonnegut. Like the guy, I found it really interesting. He would do this kind of like, oh boy, what's a good way to say it? Like, he would do like some satirical stuff, but one of my favorite things about his books is that there's this kind of like underlying love for humanity. It is acknowledging the darkness of the world, but then also talking about things that are sweet. And you have like these lines that are just like, I think about him every once in a while, where like, okay, so I'm torn between the two of kind of like recommending the deal. First one I ever properly read was Slaughterhouse-Five, and this one's a little funky because the main character, or kind of the consciousness, keeps jumping at different points in his life, so it's trying to mirror the kind of like strange wackiness, or not wackiness is a terrible word for it, but just kind of almost a nonsensical aspect of war, where it's just very difficult to kind of tell things apart, and it's kind of this like haze, if you will. So the character's jumping from like, okay, now he's a child, now he's an adult, now he's an old man, now he's on this like spaceship abducted by aliens, that kind of stuff. Which, that's pretty cool, but if you're looking for something straightforward, it's not so much like a good sort of like straightforward narrative sort of deal. So I think the winner in this case would be God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater. Like, this is probably my favorite Kurt Vonnegut. I mean, Slaughterhouse-Five is pretty high up there, but this is the one I like the most. And a lot of it is because of the character Elliot Rosewater, where in a lot of ways, Elliot kind of seems like a screw up. Like this guy, he's from well-off family, and he is like living in this town trying to be like a sort of like handyman for people. And he's a little bit of a, what's a good way to put it? He seems like in a lot of ways he's troubled, but there's this underlying compassion for humanity itself. And like this idea that people who are unfortunate and trying to, his project, he decides, is that he's going to love the unlovable. And I think when I read this, I just really liked it, because I think in a lot of ways, kind of especially now, it's really easy to focus on the negative parts. It's really easy to focus on these things that aren't necessarily going our way, or it's basically like you are constantly reminded about how miserable things are, and how a lot of people, maybe celebrities or just kind of people on the internet or things, are like terrible people, and that sort of deal. And I think what I really liked about this book is that there's kind of like this not underlying, but there's just this emphasis on like kindness of people, about what we're capable of. That, are you really, like, kind of society treats Elliot kind of like a fool for this kind of project where he's trying to love the unlovable. But I find it really beautiful that he does that. Like, that's really, it's cool. I look at that and I'm like, okay, I know it's a work of fiction, but I loved it. I thought that was great. I should reread this again at some point. Okay. Now, I talked earlier about what color light was it in The Great Gatsby. It's The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. One of the things that is so cool about books is this idea that you can read something at a certain time in your life, you pick it up again, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I didn't even consider that before. Maybe it's a character's viewpoint, or maybe there was another historical aspect you didn't know about, and you're like, oh my god, no way! Like, that's crazy, dude! But Great Gatsby is probably my go-to. When I first read this, I think a part of me could really identify with Gatsby as a character, because at the time, like when I read it, it was around high school. Yeah, high school. Like the first time I read it, I was really hung up on, there was this person I was particularly interested in, and she didn't feel the same about me, and it was kind of this unrequited love sort of deal. You know, I mean, if you're that age, you kind of have something like that. But it was one of those, at the first time, I could really relate to Gatsby, but then as the years went along and I'd start reading it more and more, you kind of see how Gatsby himself is like this character that you're just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you almost feel like Nick in that sense. You want to sit him down and just be like, dude, no matter what you do, you can't make people like you. Like, you can't, dude. Like, no matter how hard you try, sometimes it just doesn't work, and you got to accept that. And if you don't, you're just going to be miserable. And he kind of has this sense of denial. It is, yeah, basically, it's a book about a bunch of rich people, and how for all of the parties and lavish things that are going on in that kind of life, especially in the roaring 20s, it's just this idea that there's this kind of underlying sadness and depression. And it's just really interesting to see that. And especially that while I am not super rich, I don't have a lot of cheddar like that. And hey, maybe you do, congratulations. But if you don't, you can find it interesting to relate to these characters, because there's this underlying core aspect that's articulated, this sadness and this kind of like longing for things that can never be. And it's just like, it's sad, but it's also just like, it's great. It's one of the few of those kind of like classic books that really clicked with me. Like, this was my, like, this is it. This was the kind of my gateway one. I love the art on the cover. It's like insanely cool. And I used to have a copy and then I sold it, but while I was still in college, they had this thing where you could buy used books and they had like a bunch of stickers and stuff on the back, and then they would like cut them down for like $3 to $4. So I just walked over and I bought Great Gatsby. I didn't even have a class. Actually, no, I did. There was another book that I did that. It was Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, which that's pretty great too. It's one of those books that you read it and you're just kind of like, oh, that's weird. I don't understand. I thought this was supposed to be fiction. It's kind of one of those. Okay, so one of the books that I feel kind of was like a foundation of like, I'm so glad I read this and kind of the power of what books can be, is Tuesdays with Morrie. It is a book basically about this guy who tries to connect. This is a real thing. This isn't like a thing of fiction, but he was connecting with his college professor, and his college professor was dying. And it was just really, it was great, because you have this person who's like approaching the end of their life and they are talking about the things that they valued. And it's like, Morrie himself is like this beautiful soul. Like, he's the kind of guy who, if he hears music, he loves to dance. Like, and that sounds silly, like, no duh, but it's like one of them where even if people would laugh, you just kind of keep doing it. It was like one of those type of people where you're like, that is beautiful. Like, it's cool to see that. It's cool to see this like kind of happiness for life itself, like the zest. And like, that is so, like, that's beautiful. Like, it's nice to see, and it's like a great way to kind of gauge priorities, where you're like, ultimately, one of the reasons we're here, regardless of what kind of meaning there is in the universe, it's each other. It's like, we are here for each other and to kind of enjoy this ride for as long as we can. And like, that we're always going to reassess, but it's the people. It's like, connections with others is like one of the key foundation things. And there was a line that I really liked too, where Morrie said something, I forgot which page, but he said something of like, don't let the culture do the thinking for you, because if you do, you're just going to be miserable. And I think that's great advice. I still, in some ways, I try to follow that to this day. Great book. Okay, so I'm listing a bunch of these books that are like either novels or like particular psychology books or even things. What about something fun? Like something kind of more about reading is that it's not so much you have to read a certain type of books. Actually, I should have started with that earlier, where it's like, what kind of books do you read, or what kind of ideas? Answer whatever you'd like. Like, there's so many avenues. Pick what you find interesting and go from there. Okay, so I have 2 comics. Well, technically a manga, but the other one's a comic that I highly recommend. Number 1 is Pokemon Adventures. It's really good. It's like, okay, if you liked Pokemon, or like you liked the idea of Pokemon, like that general kind of fun about it, like this series is wicked cool at that. Like it really captures that kind of joy of the series. And it's just like, it's such a fun read. Like it's great. It's like one of the best Pokemon things to come out of Pokemon. Like I loved playing the games, the movies and stuff were fun, but I read this and this got the imagination soaring. Like this was super cool. Okay, but so that one was a manga that was pretty cool. Now this one, if you really enjoy kind of epics or the like that idea of like following characters after a period of time, like this grand scale, Saga. Oh my god. The Saga comic series is like freaking wicked. Okay, so you have these like 2 planets, or like these 2 type of like societies, and they're at war with each other. And like 2 of them, or like 1 from each side, basically defect and they have a kid who's like a half of both of them. And it's like majority of the story is following this family as they travel across the stars and these people are trying to find them. It is so good. Like this series is wicked. I will say too, not sure if this is kind of like one of your like, I don't know, I don't rock with that sort of deal. I normally am not, or like kind of in that case. There's a lot of like kind of sex and nudity sort of deal. And I could see people, and when I first read it, I was kind of like, oh, this feels a little like there's a lot of it and it kind of is a bit distracting, but it also kind of portrays life itself where you have a bunch of people from different cultures and like different ideas. And it's like it feels mature in a sense of where it's like the nudity and stuff is there, but it's not so much about like, whoa, check out how hot they are. But it more just kind of feels like another extension of life itself, and it's like that's just a part of it, and like there are other things going on. This is just like an additional thing, so it's like really cool. The characters are great, and especially the story like goes like years and years and years, so characters grow older and they change. It's like it's so good. One of my favorite characters is Prince 4. Like the guy is such a mess. It's cool. Like he's got like a TV head, and like sometimes when he says things, it's like you have this like inner kind of what they're really thinking regardless of the words that show up on the screen, and it's like it's so cool. It's a series that's still going. This is a collection of I think this is volume 1 to 9 from chapter 1 to chapter 54. It is totally wicked. Like it's so good. Okay, cool. Alright, so suppose you're like, hey man, I want to read some books and stuff, but I'm just going to throw it out there, dude. I don't want to like commit to a lot of this like big shit. Fair enough. Okay, so might I recommend Better Than Food Book Reviews recommended this, and now it is my turn to recommend it to you. The Collected Fictions of Jorge Luis Borges. This is really good. Like, if you want the potential of like how great reading can be, but don't want to have these extreme time commitments, these are a collection of short stories, and they like wildly range on subjects, and it's just like so interesting and cool. There's one that's about like almost a Gangs of New York sort of deal, and it's just like interesting. Like the guy has so many like interesting ideas and like topics that you really, when you read it, you're like, this is crazy. Like it takes you to like a whole other plane of existence, man. Like it's awesome. My favorite one is about the Labyrinth and the Minotaur. Like I remember reading that, and by the time I finished the story, I'm like, oh my god, that's what it was about. Yo! Super cool. I highly recommend it. Okay. Now, one of the quick things I want to just kind of discuss, if you will, or perhaps you're thinking, you're like, okay, how do I read? Audiobook or like ebook or physical book? I don't think you can go wrong, truly. Like, I'm not so much an audiobook guy myself. I get it. I totally get it. Maybe you're keeping your hands busy and it's like, oh, hey, I can put this on in the background. Like, that's pretty wicked. Like, good on you. If it works, it works. I really do like the ritual of reading where you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm staring at this. I'm giving this my attention. I'm physically leafing through the pages, you know, that kind of stuff. But Okay, so ultimately go with what you want to go with. As for myself, I am much more of a physical book kind of guy. I like doing that thing where you like flip through the pages and you like sniff the book, like you get a smell for it. I just think it's cool. It adds to the immersion where you're like, whoa, what's going on over here? Ebooks are cool, but I find myself like, I like to avoid looking at a screen if I can help it. Like physical pages, cool. I can mark things up if I own the book. That kind of stuff, it's wicked. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how this video is going to turn out. It may not be very good, but I figured I wanted to try something new. As silly as it sounds, I mean, it's like, no duh, Sherlock, but I also keep thinking about that. I'm like, ultimately, this is my YouTube channel and I can do whatever I want to do with it. I like talking about games. I love talking about games, and I still will continue to do so. But I figured, you know, you never really know what's going to be successful and what's not. So you might as well just make the stuff you're happy with. And if people like that, more power to you. That's freaking wicked. But yeah. If you've got any book recommendations or like, hey, you should check this shit out or whatever, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'm not quite sure if I gave a good overall, hey, you should read sort of deal, but this is just kind of the, yeah. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you do decide to read, I hope you have a fantastic time. Adios.